Hello and welcome to the show. Now the Blizzard Mountain expansion for Forza Horizon 3 has brought us a whole new surface to go racing on, a whole new challenge. We have snow and we have the odd patch of ice around the places my Bentley finds through that particular corner. And that is, something new to Forza. However, we haven't had a huge amount in the way of new parts added with this. Yes, the cars do get some snow tyres, otherwise there's very little in the way of grip, but that is about it. The rest of the parts, there are the rally parts, however, nothing else really new added parts-wise, and that did get me thinking. Certainly when it's come to the rally car build series, I've been tending to build my cars in exactly the same way that I would for taking the cars down a dirt stage. And I was kind of curious as to what the numbers were, what the facts were behind upgrading cars on Forza and how it would be affecting your lap time. Now, the first thing we needed was a location, because a lot of the Blizzard Mountain courses are a lot tighter. They're a lot more technical. While they are still relatively flowing, you've got a lot more lower speed turns. So we come to this satellite circuit. It was very close between this circuit and the Mountain Scramble one that I use for the rally car builds. This one has got a good mixture of some higher speed, some of the faster corners you'll find actually in Blizzard Mountain, along with some slower speed sections. Also needed cars. You see, the chances are you're not going to be running a car with just a single upgrade in Forza. So what I'm using here are my pre-built S1 class rally cars and changing the various bits and pieces on them. Now, the first thing I wanted to investigate was the tyre compounds. Of course, the cars fitted with snow tyres are going to be the fastest around here. That is very much a given, and you can see with this SVX here as it dances its way around the course, there's less grip out here on the snow. There is no doubt about that. And certainly when you hit the ice patches around the place, you're going to be slithering off into the wall. However, with some snow tyres on the vehicle, they're pretty damn good fun to go driving around here, and you can carry plenty of corner speed. But what was interesting to me was how would the other compounds of tyre fare if you were to take a car driving around Blizzard Mountain. You saw when we raced the V8 supercars with their racing tyres on the snow. They struggled. Now, part of the reason why I'm using these rally cars, they are all-wheel drive. Okay, this will still manage to find its way up the hill here. This is the car fitted with racing tyres. It will still climb up the hills and it doesn't scrabble around as much as the V8 supercar. But of course, you come to the corner and you can clearly see the front end doesn't turn in. We were doing about 70 miles an hour on the exit of this corner. We're at 50, sliding our way, bouncing across the barrels. There is nowhere near the toe. Now, that is what you would be expecting from the car, let's face it. However, between the different tyres, we've got racing tyres, we've got sport tyres, street tyres, and then we have the car's stock tyres. I wondered what might actually, be quicker. If, for whatever reason, and most likely me coming up with challenges saying you can't use snow tyres, if, for whatever reason, you had to build a car for not snow tyres, how things would manage. You see, my theory was that perhaps the more tread the car had, the better it would fare. So the racing tyres, apart from the actual physical race cars, like the V8 supercars that I do believe have full slick tyres, the racing tyres are kind of your road legal semi-slick tyres on the car. So there's a tiny little bit of tread, but not very much. Your sport tyres will have a little bit more tread, street tyres more tread, and stock tyres, your normal road going tyres. So I was kind of thinking that the closer to the stock tyres, the perhaps faster the car would go. With more tread, you might be able to sort of throw more snow out of the way, and maybe the game's physics engine would, be giving the cars that little bit more grip. Certainly, the sport tyres felt a lot nicer than the racing tyres. The sport tyres did feel considerably better to drive. I had a little bit more confidence in the car when it was on the sport tyres. I mean, we're still not going slow, let's not forget that. This car still got some 600 horsepower in the SVX, and it's getting up to 120, 130 miles an hour in places around this course. You are asking a lot of the car. This is the vehicle on its stock tyres. Now, with the race tyres, the car got 1 PI into S2 class. With the race tyre, with the standard tyres, the car was a high A class vehicle. Now, with the standard tyres, the car was not particularly nice to drive, as you can probably imagine. It did have less grip. I had a lot less confidence in it than, I say a lot less confidence, relatively speaking, than I did with the race tyres. It's getting the car turned in as well that's the real difficulty here, and the lap times throw up an interesting result. With the snow tyres, of course, I just put that in there for comparison. It's like a 114.5 from the car. The street tyres were actually the fastest. Now, I didn't actually feel a huge difference between the street and the sport tyres on the vehicle itself, but yeah, obviously speed was found with those street tyres. The race tyres were down in fourth, a 28.5, only half a second quicker than the stock tyres. Of course, yeah, snow tyres going to be the way to go. The other compounds actually surprisingly close in terms of lap time, with street being really where you want to go. The next of our tests to do with tyre width. I've seen a fair bit of discussion in the comments of the rally car builds. My general rule is you go for as bigger tyres as possible with cars. The way the Forza PI system works, you get a lot of performance from big tyres for not too much in the way of PI, so I tend to stick on as bigger tyres as I can. Now, theoretically speaking, on snow, smaller tyres should or can be better. The theory being that a smaller tyre will cut through the snow. It'll cut through the snow to find the tarmac or the gravel, whatever it is that is below the snow, and you'll be able to find more grip. Whereas you have a big tyre, it's not going to be able to get through the snow, so you can be constantly stuck on top of that. Although I was rather dubious that Forza's physics engine would quite be replicating all of that. Again, we were going to be doing a test using a couple of sort of pre-built rally cars, starting with the Evo 6. Also had to go with some rear-wheel drive cars in this one. The Charger Hellcat, again this one built up to the top of S1 cars. Also the Charger Hellcat can have some absolutely massive tyres. Another thing while I was doing this test that I wanted to have a look at was weight of the vehicle. I was wondering if perhaps having the car that bit heavier, or whether that would be giving you perhaps a bit more stability, a bit more traction. Again, weight distribution is going to play a factor in that one as well, but yeah, I was kind of curious as to whether a heavier car might actually fare a bit better in the snow. You might be able to put that power down to the road a little bit easier. So yeah, kind of combined these two little tests in one. It gave the cars 5 laps with the various configurations around this circuit. The Hellcat was quite an interesting one to be driving. It's 140 miles an hour out of this car. Still rear-wheel drive in the snow with some 700 odd horsepower. It's yeah, quite on the sideways side. When it comes to tyres, maximum width tyres are the way to go. It's about a second difference in the case of the Hellcat, actually quite a bit more in the case of the Evo 6. Yeah, you want the bigger tyres. The weight, no, I didn't adjust for the PI difference, of course. When you have the car at minimum weight, it is going to be at a higher PI than with maximum weight. The Evo 6, though, considerably quicker at minimum weight. However, with the Hellcat, with everything else exactly the same, only 0.2 of a second faster with the car lighter, and I suspect with the Evo, well, it's all-wheel drive. So it's not really got such a problem with traction, whereas with the Charger, being a rear-wheel drive car, that's one of the things that slows it, one of the biggest factors slowing it down. It can't get its power down out of the corners in the same way an all-wheel drive car can. So that little bit more weight certainly was helpful. Now, another thing that I wanted to take a look at was the aero parts for the cars. I've been tending to run pretty much full Forza Aero on most of the vehicles that I run these days. The downsides of running extra downforce is, of course, drag. Now, when you're building a car on Forza 6 and you're tackling, let's say, Yas Marina circuit, for example, so it's got some really, really long straights. Yes, having the aero parts on the car will reduce the top speed. The thing is, Blizzard Mountain Place, there's not really a huge amount of long straights for that drag to really come into effect. However, you've also got to say that aero works best when you're going at higher speeds. If you're tackling a circuit that's got a lot of, 40, 50 mile an hour corners, is the downforce really going to be doing a huge amount on the car? Now, as far as PI-wise goes, as far as building cars to certain classes, the aero parts tend not to make a huge difference. On the Impreza that I built for this, it was added 2 PI for putting on aero parts. On the RX-7 that we have going here, it added on 4. That's not very much. That's not very much at all. Again, I was running this with 2. These are pre-built cars, of course, up to the S1 class. The Impreza being all-wheel drive, the RX-7 was converted to, or put back to its rear-wheel drive state, just to see if that would have any effect on the car. Again, the RX-7, quite slidey. I think the RX-7 actually was a little bit slidier than the Hellcat around this course. I also found out that jump is horrendous. Coming down towards the start-finish line, that can really throw cars about. The results, though, pretty damn clear. With changing absolutely nothing about the car other than removing the aero parts, it is pretty much a second a lap difference. Now, I will say that the circuit that I'm driving around here does have some higher speed corners. You know, we're talking a couple of places 120 mile an hour corners, which you might not see too much of in other areas of Blizzard Mountain. However, still, that being said, a second a lap for just 4 PI in the case of the RX-7, that's very, very worth it. But that then brings us on to our next interesting topic, because I saw someone pose this in a comment section. It did really get me thinking. Wide body kits are here on Horizon 3, and while a lot of people are mainly interested in them just for the pure aesthetics of having them, they do have a mechanical reason. And the reason why that I will put them on all of my cars in the Rally Build series so far has been they give you bigger tyres. Quite substantially bigger tyres. In fact, they give you, I think it's 325s on the rear. I think it might be 295s. I did have it written down. I've completely forgotten it. I apologise. But they give you much, much bigger tyres on the car than the vehicle can get from standard. Admittedly, some cars like this BMW, for example, can get fairly sizable tyres. However, what they do is won't allow you to put on Forza front aero. You can keep the rear wing. You can have whatever rear wing you want on the vehicle, so you can put the Forza rear wing on the car. However, the front splitter, on all the body kits I've seen, as far as I am aware, there might be a car somewhere that doesn't, but all the body kits I've seen will force you to run the body kit's front aero, which means you get no Forza downforce at the front. Which then again got me thinking, is it advantageous to run a car with a wide body kit so that you can get the bigger tyres on it, or is it advantageous to keep the car without the body kit so you can be running full aero? Because we've seen both of those instances. You want the full aero, you want as bigger tyres as possible. So again, I set up with two cars. The BMW was converted to all-wheel drive in this instance. Again, I was just looking for sort of really lap speed with the cars, getting as fast to cars as we could. I was also using the S14 Silvia that went around. Now, I used the Silvia because the car, when you don't have the wide body kit on, doesn't get particularly big tyres. I think it's 245 on the front, 265 on the back. So they're not particularly big tyres when you compare it to sort of the 285, 295 you get on the front and 325 with the wide body kit on. That's a big, big difference in tyre size. Again, I was slightly dubious in that there are some big tyre size differences for just a front splitter, although there is a big PI difference. Because the tyres make up a lot of PI on these cars, when you have such big differences, the cars without the wide body kits don't have a huge amount in the way, the tyre grip, so I had more PI to play with. I did build the cars up. In the case of the Silvia, I got 130 more horsepower in the car without the wide body kit, because we were stuck with the much smaller tyres. Now that is a huge amount of power in a car that weighs pretty much the same as it did with the wide body kit. That's a huge amount of power. In the case of the BMW, didn't have quite as big a tyres, or didn't have quite as big a difference in tyres, so I couldn't get as much power, about 30 horsepower. However, yeah, the times once again speak for themselves. It was considerably better to go for the wide body kit. Both cars over a second, or around a second, a lap faster with the wide body kit with maximum width tyres over ignoring the wide body kit in favour of full aero and perhaps more power. The BMW was a little bit lighter, 150 pounds lighter, 30 horsepower more. You're better off. You're better off going with the wide body kit. You're better off basically getting as bigger tyres as possible. Yes, you may sacrifice a little bit in the way of front downforce, and ideally, yeah, you would have the Forza splitter on the front. However, yeah, tyres. Tyres, big, wide tyres is the way to go here. So, as far as conclusion-wise goes, well, when it comes to building a car for the Blizzard Mountain, it is very similar to building a car for any of the off-road events on the mainland. While there is generally a lot less grip out here, cars still find speed in a very, very similar way. So, yeah, big tyres, downforce are always going to be helpful. Perhaps the weight with a rear-wheel drive car, maybe even a front-wheel drive car, might be what helps them out. To be honest, having the weight over the front, having the extra weight over the driven wheels can certainly help them out. But yeah, on the whole, you want as wide a tyres as you can get and as much downforce as you can get for the tighter, twistier stuff. While, yeah, perhaps not the most realistic simulation of snow racing, do still quite enjoy it out here. However, that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.